Welcome to the Canes Corner podcast. I'm Adam Gold. How's everybody tonight? Carolina Hurricanes picked up a 6-4 win over the Florida Panthers, and they are your Metropolitan Division champions 2 years running. That's worth a toast. The finest tap water, not really tap water, it's bottled water. Big jugs of bottled water you get at the supermarket, in a Mets pint glass. Excuse me. We celebrate. Lord knows Mets probably aren't going to celebrate this year. Might as well celebrate something for the Carolina Hurricanes. So we're brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. As you can see in the corner of the screen, right there, the Aluminum Company of North Carolina on Hamlin Road in Durham. No place like it. Sammy Hanna and his crew do a great job. If it's for the exterior of your home, you can find it at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina on Hamlin Road in Durham. All right. We have some things to get to. First, let me do this. Randall, I did get your text. So, happy 9th birthday to Carter. 9 years old tomorrow. Today, by the time you listen to this. Jacob Slavin is his favorite player. Carter is a huge Caniac. Or is Randall a huge Caniac? I'm not sure. So shout out to Carter Jones. All right. This is an interactive podcast. All right, let's get right to it. I'm not going to talk about the game tonight a ton because there's a bigger picture. We just played an 82-game schedule. Much bigger picture for me than this game tonight. This game had a lot of good to it. I guess I'll be just quick about it. The game had a lot of good to it. Carolina was the better team for definitely the first 40 minutes. They got out to the lead, should have had more goals, had the puck, made it hard on Florida. Florida needed the game too. Florida didn't want to play Boston, who won again because they win by accident now, 65 wins this year. Florida would have rather played New Jersey than Boston. And had Florida won tonight, the Devils would have won the division, and Florida, as wild card one, would have played Florida. And the Islanders would have dealt with Boston. But that ain't how it worked out. So Florida gets to go to Boston now. Enjoy it. I don't think Florida is good enough. I don't think Florida's going to get a game. They might get a game. They might get one game. But I'll tell you what, if they win a game, I'll bet it's game one. Anyway, so Florida needed the game tonight. And Florida's got a high-powered offense, and they can play a heavy game. And Carolina has been playing just okay hockey. But the way they started against Detroit is basically the same way they started against Florida. They had the puck. And if you have enough of the puck and the other team doesn't, even if you aren't good at finishing, which Carolina, gosh, they had chances tonight. I mean, Stahl, Aho, Chatfield, Teravainen, and Jarvis 2-on-1 all in the first period. I mean, Carolina could have easily been up 4-0 after 2. Instead, it's 2-0 after 2. And then you're just a couple of weird things, away from it being a toss-up, which is exactly where they were while the Devils were coming back from a 4-1 deficit to tie and ultimately win the game in Washington. So the Hurricanes, whatever negatives we think about them, and there are negatives. We understand that. I don't know that we're going to talk about too many of the negatives here other than just to mention them. But their inability to finish some of those chances, enough of those chances, because they could have put the game completely to bed early. And ultimately, the goaltending got them tonight. But they won the game. So let's just deal with the fact that they won the game. All right, power play is still not good. But the first power play was actually pretty good. The one they got 15 seconds into the game. I thought that was good. power play in the third period was horrific. Anyway, Metropolitan Division champions for the second straight year. Think about that for a second. When the NHL put those divisions together, I'm trying to think the year. I don't even remember the year. It was the early aughts. No, the early teens, I believe. Most people looked at that division and said, well, gosh, how are the Hurricanes ever going to win it? Actually, the conversation wasn't even that. The conversation was, how are the Hurricanes ever going to make the playoffs? This was in the middle of that drought, that 9 years with no playoff bids. Well, 2 years in a row, they won the division. It was the best division in hockey this year. Although you could make an argument the Atlantic was because Boston was in it. Toronto had a good year. Tampa was really rough at the end of the year. Tampa had lost 8 of 11. But the fact is they won the division for the second straight year. They had 113 points. That will be the second highest total in the NHL this year. They did so with, to be kind, middle-of-the-road goaltending, a bottom-third NHL power play, and a roster at the end that appears offensively challenged when you get to the playoffs and you are playing elite teams. But they got 113 points. Second best in the league. I mean, that says something, right? And this is the way I think a lot of people process this. We're envious of, like Edmonton's abilities, their skill, Toronto's skill, the Rangers, Boston. We're envious of that. Basically, every one of those teams has a dude, and a dude who scores. Leon Draisaitl scored his 52nd goal of the season tonight, and he is not even close to his team's lead in goals because they got Connor McDavid. And behind them, they've got other good goal scorers, right? Boston's got David Pasternak's got 60. The Rangers have Zibanejad and Kreider. Panarin's not really a huge goal scorer, but he scores plenty of goals. They've got tons of talent, tons of firepower. I mean, Carolina doesn't have that. They just don't. Carolina's leading goal scorer, Sebastian Aho, has got 36. And nobody in their right mind would put him at the level of some of those other players. Not as a goal scorer. He's a great 200-foot player. And he's a tremendous competitor. But, I mean, they're going to need another level out of Sebastian that we haven't necessarily seen in the postseason yet. We've seen good Sebastian Aho. We have not seen great Sebastian Aho, except in that bubble series against the Rangers. That was goofy great Sebastian Aho. Martin Necas is second on the team with 28 goals. Nobody on the roster currently, on the active roster, has more than 20. So you see, now they do have 12 players total that have double-digit goals. Jesper Fast became the 12th tonight. We're talking the active roster. We removed Svechnikov from it. But it's a lot of, 13, 14, 15. A lot of those. So there's a lot of guys on the team that score, but just not a lot. And that's what they are. They're actually ideally suited to play the way this team played 4 years ago, the first year they made the playoffs, in terms of they've got a lot of guys who can play with a little bit of a gritty game, that they're not really a physical team, but they can be a hard team, and they're certainly difficult to play against. They're going to have to do a forechecking. They're going to have to be great at what they do. But I think they're good enough to win a series. And then when you get out of this series, I think they're good enough to win the next series. I don't think it's a good idea to look, can they win 4 series? They can win 1. And then I think they've played well against the Rangers this year, even though they were 1-3. I thought they were better than the Rangers in each of the last 2 games. They only won 1 of them. And the other 2 games were winnable games, I thought. But in order for Carolina to beat the Rangers, they're going to have to look like the 2 games they played at the end of March. And they're going to have to be low scoring, tight checking, and not mistake free, but minimal mistake games. You're not going to be able to give the Rangers away. Not going to be able to give them goals. You can't do it. We're in the playoffs now. The soft goal will lose the game for you. Just not going to be able to overcome it. I mean, is there going to be an isolated incident where you might be able to overcome the soft goal? Yeah, maybe, but you better have a lead at the time. Because if you don't, you'll lose. You just will. The teams are too good, and they're not going to give you anything. So you can't be giving away goals. All right, I don't want to make this a wine fest. Metro yes, Metro champs 2 years in a row. Division champs 3 years in a row. 113 points, second best to the Boston Bruins in the NHL. Last 25 games, 13-11-1. That's obviously, it's not even a playoff level stretch right there. 13-11-1 the last 25 games. That is a reality of this team. And it's not all since the Svechnikov injury, because Svechnikov hasn't missed the last 25 games. But that's what they are. That's what they have been. So there are some challenges. But, man, the blue line was great offensively all year. Brent Burns is excellent. He makes his mistakes, but Brent's actually, I think, had a very good defensive season. He's not the fastest skater in the world, but he's got tremendous reach. He's a good skater, obviously. And playing next to Jaccob Slavin will make anybody look good, but he has played well. Does he have his issues? Yeah, he's got his issues. The game in Detroit when Carolina got beat at the buzzer, basically, the power play goal that made it 2-2, it was his lost coverage on Dylan Larkin. He should have been on top of Dylan Larkin, but he wasn't. But these things happen. Everybody does it. I mean, we've seen games where Brett Pesce has lost defensive assignments this year. Brady Shea's lost defensive assignments. Jaccob Slavin's given the puck away at times. So everybody's going to make mistakes. But for the most part, I thought Brent has been excellent defensively, and it's got 61 points on the season. I don't think anybody's going to complain about a 61-point season. 18 goals. Yeah, 18 goals. And 43 assists? 18 goals, 43 assists. It's pretty doggone good for Brent Burns. Brady Shea has 18 goals this season. Shane Gostisbehere's got 3. Jalen Chatfield's 5 or 6. Brett Pesce's got 5. Carolina's Jaccob Slavin had 7. Carolina's blue line just pumped in goals, and a lot lately. They've been driven by their blue line, and that's going to have to continue into the postseason. But I just wanted to talk about a couple of players that I think have been pleasant surprises, especially of late. And one of them is going to surprise you. I still have some concerns long-term for what Carolina expects. But Jesperi Kotkaniemi has been a very good player now for about 2.5, 3 months. If we go back to maybe the beginning of February, so I guess that's it's like 2.5 months, right? I think Kotkaniemi's been a very good player. He's not a great offensive player, obviously. They could use a more dynamic second center to make a more dynamic second scoring line. But Kotkaniemi is a very good defensive player. He wins faceoffs. He can play a physical game. He's a good skater. I mean, he's just become a good player. And that's nice to have, right? I mean, ideally, he'd be a third center. Jordan Staal would be a fourth center. But that's not the way this team is structured right now. But he's played well. And with Necas and Nason on that line, there is hope that that could become a line that does some damage, certainly in the first round of the playoffs against the Islanders. And let's be honest about what's going to happen going forward. There are, to me, three elements that determine whether or not you advance in the postseason. In any postseason series, there are three elements. There is obviously special teams. Carolina cannot get beat on special teams. You don't have to win special teams. You just can't lose special teams. We've been talking about that for a long time. Carolina's power play is not good. Well, the penalty kill has to compensate for that. Don't allow power play goals, and the power play goals you don't score don't hurt you as much. There you go. Don't lose special teams. Get good enough goaltending. Don't allow bad goals. So, well, we saw it tonight. And yes, I believe Antti Raanta has to be your game one starter. Freddie Anderson, through two periods, was looking like he might be the game one starter. Because I was of the mind that because of the mindset of all the people involved, if Freddie could play a good game tonight, a solid game tonight, then you could start Freddie in game one and just go to Raanta in game two. Whether Freddie was good or not, you could just go to Raanta in game two. And, who cares? Rotate him. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you use one goaltender or two or three. Just got to win the game. But based on what I saw tonight, especially the way the head coach talked about it after, I mean, I think you have to start Antti Raanta game one. I think you have to. And I don't know, maybe that'll motivate Freddie. I mean, Freddie wants to play, right? The giveaway tonight was just, yes, we call that analysis. So, and I've been saying this for weeks and weeks and weeks. I think if they go deep, Pyotr Kochetkov will have something to say about it. Or who knows, Yaniv Peretz, the kid they signed out of Quinnipiac. I know Pyotr has played well in the AHL, but they tried. Rod tried to make Pyotr happen. Tried to. When Raanta got hurt, they tried to make Kochetkov a thing again. And that game against Toronto was the outlier. The other games were just okay. He was still allowing too many goals you can't allow. That Toronto game, though, and I think it stands out because it was so good. He absolutely stole 2 points that night. So I could see them saying, well, let's see what happens. And maybe the competitive juices flow and he's able to do that in a postseason series. If that's the case, great. But I don't know. It's a huge risk. It would have to be a desperate situation. It would have to be both of your other goaltenders have just completely lost the script, which is very possible. But what we saw from Freddie tonight, you just can't put that. You can't put that in game one. You can't put that on the starter's crease in game one. I don't think you can. But Rod Brind'Amour has done stranger things with goaltending before. And in a way, one of his coaching mentors, I don't even know if mentor is the right word, Peter Laviolette often had some curious goaltending choices. So I've liked Kotkaniemi. I've loved what I've seen of late, mostly defensively, but I've liked what I've seen of late from Seth Jarvis. Sebastian Aho will be fine. My fear is that Sebastian Aho is going to try and do too much. And when he tries to do that, it hurts the rest of his game. So, and I'm sure that everybody will get reset from the the end of the regular season. They'll get a couple of days off here, even if they play Monday, and they probably will. But even if they play Monday, they'll get tomorrow. They might even get Saturday off, or they might practice Saturday and get Sunday off. So the playoffs are here. So it's time for your best players to get back to being your best players. And that means it's time for Martin Necas to stop doing these silly things and get back to being a really good player again. The Necas's last month and a half, all of the stuff that we didn't like in Marty's game last year has come back. Fortunately for the Hurricanes, he's still been scoring enough goals, at least, even though of late, no, not much. Remember when Necas was like well ahead of a point a game pace? Well, he played 82 and he had 71 points. So obviously in the second half of the year, the point production has dropped off. So 71 points on the season, all the games count. And Necas has had some huge goals this year. But we need Necas to get back to being a dynamic, dangerous player every night. And they need Jarvis and that Teuvo Teravainen guy who played an excellent defensive game tonight. We need those two players to start contributing on the score sheet, because that line, I in the middle of, I'm one giant tangent. We're going to get the questions here in 2 seconds. So we said special teams. My gosh, why do you even listen to this? Why do you tune in on YouTube to the Morning After podcast or listen to it if I can't string thoughts together? You can't lose special teams. Your goaltending has to be solid and make the timely save. You don't have to stand on your head. This team doesn't demand that you stand on your head. You just can't let in bad goals. And the other thing, I believe what has really helped or hurt Carolina in the postseason when they have lost, and even when they have won, that third line, Carolina's got to have one that does some damage. The Aho line is the top line. That's your top scoring line. Carolina's second line, because of the way Rod deploys it, especially on home ice, is the Staal line. That third line that's going to get matchups against either the fourth line or the third line, that third scoring line, and in this case, it's going to be Kotkaniemi, Necas, and Nason. Right now, that's the way it is. That line's got to score. And last year, the Trocheck line was Carolina's third line. Didn't score enough. The year before, same thing. Didn't score enough. Meanwhile, the teams that are beating Carolina are getting goals from the third and fourth line. So Carolina's got to get, they have to get, you can call it whatever you want. You can call it depth scoring. Carolina's got to have some production from that Kotkaniemi line, and it's got to be pretty steady production. If Carolina's playing their game, they're not going to need a ton of goals to win. 3 is enough if Carolina's playing their game. But you got to get to 3. And tonight it looked a little shaky. Again, I don't know how they didn't score 4 goals in the first 2 periods. All right, let me get to some questions here. Bert, congratulations to the Canes. Yes, they're not saying this. Oh, I said it during the aftermath. Don't tag players on Twitter or on social media. Like, are you a child? I mean, that's a child's thing to do. Oh, Auntie Rod's is better than Freddie Anderson. Let me tell both of them. Grow up. Sorry. It's the way I feel. Just stop tagging athletes in your tweets. It's juvenile. Sorry, was that too much for people? I have that's the way I look at it. John Stoker won the division. Ron a starter game 1. Yes. Yes. Oh, Bert wants a season's 3 stars. That's going to be tough. That's going to be tough. Let me think about that, Bert. Colin said they had to win in spite of the goalie tonight. I mean, they could have made it easier on the goalie. They could have had 4 on the board in the first 2 periods. It's not always the goalie. The goalie certainly let in 2 bad goals, and Rod said it after the game. Like, what'd you think of Freddie tonight? Well, he was good, and then he wasn't good. Accurate. Very, very accurate. When does Rod move some of the D men to a top 6 role in the forward lines? Well, they can always put Brent Burns back up there. But I mean, Brett's had a great year. Brady Shea scored 18 goals this year. Absolutely, absolutely tremendous. Russell wants Fost, Aho, and Martinook. One of those, I think one of those can play with Aho and Teravainen. I would not hate, and I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that it happens. I would not hate Aho with Teravainen and Fost, but the head coach told me this today. He said, we are a better team with Stahl, Martinook, and Fost together. So I do think there are some situations, and I think that will happen on the road, when he doesn't want to waste all 3 of those players defensively. I think he'll take at least one off that line and put it somewhere. So, I mean, I've liked Martinook with Aho and whoever. Martinook, Aho, and Jarvis. Martinook, Aho, and Teravainen would be fine. I also think it would help if Teravainen got back to the right side. So I'm absolutely fine with putting a little bit of a sandpaper element on a line with Aho. So I'm all about it. But Rod is going to stay, especially on home ice. He's going to stay with that line together. We need to see a little bit of a breakthrough, goal scoring wise, from Jack Drury. I asked Tripp today who he thought might emerge as a surprise goal scorer, and he said Jack. Jack's getting a lot of scoring chances, a lot. Too many to not score. What I'm hoping for, I shouldn't say I'm guessing, I'm hoping for it, because there's no guarantee it happens. That if he gets one, he'll get a bunch. But I'd say the same thing about Jarvis. And I'm waiting for the light to turn on for Teuvo. Sometimes the playoffs truly are a new season. And if that happens and Teuvo gets off to a good start, I've said this before, he is the key to unlock everything. He'll make the power play better. He'll make his sauna buddy better. He'll make the whole team better. And today what you saw from that line, defensively, Teravainen, Aho, and Jarvis were outstanding tonight. Let's see. JT, will they sit Puljujarvi to play Stepan and Stasny? I don't think so. I wouldn't. Jesse Puljujarvi is not 4th overall pick good, which is one of the great understatements of my lifetime. But he's an effective player in a 4th line role. He's a good skater. He's a big body. I got no problem with Puljujarvi being on the ice. And I also don't have any problem with, in short bursts, maybe it's a game, playing him a little bit further up in the lineup if you need a physical presence and some speed on the line. He's fast. He's big. He uses his body. Can't score worth a damn, but I got no problem with it. I actually am glad. You know me, I've been Team Derek Stepan for a long time. But I actually like Paul Stastny on the ice. I don't think I have to look at the time on ice tonight. I don't think Paul played a ton. But I kind of like Paul on the ice. I think Paul right now gives you a little bit more goal scoring than Derek Stepan, who has not scored in forever. I love Derek, and he's a right-handed faceoff guy, which Rod really likes to have. But I think you could sacrifice that because I believe Stastny just has a little bit more knack for scoring, and they desperately need that. So Ian says Puljujarvi has to break the seal eventually. No, he doesn't. He doesn't have to. I don't know how he doesn't already have 2 goals, but he doesn't have to break the seal. The fact that he didn't score either of those goals, both into an empty net, basically tells you that he doesn't have to break the seal. So, all right, Aaron says, do you think that when we get knocked out, the straw will be our special teams or our goalie? Which do you think is ultimately weaker? Well, I don't think special teams is weak. I think the power play is weak. Of course, if you give up a handful of power play goals and you're not scoring power play goals, that's bad. So I'm going to be just diplomatic and say the answer to that question, Aaron, is yes. To both. I think they are both equally vulnerable. So, because, I mean, we'd be kidding ourselves if we thought that Raanta was any better than, yeah, he could do it. Raanta could do it. But we are not throwing anybody on the ice unless we're taking a chance with Kochetkov. We're not throwing anybody on the ice who's great. What we're hoping for is don't allow any bad goals and come up with a timely save when you need it. The way this team plays, they don't necessarily have to have great goaltending. They just can't have goaltending that hurts them. And again, they can't lose special teams. So, just a couple more here, and then we're going to go. Do we really have enough scoring power to make the conference finals? It's from Black Cats and Hurricanes. Interesting. Yes. You could win a game 2-1. You could win a game 1-0. And if Carolina is going to get to the conference finals, which I'm telling you, I think they can. If Carolina is going to get to the conference finals, they're going to have to win a game 2-1. They're going to have to win a game 1-0. Guarantee it. Guarantee it. The scoring problems aren't going to go away. They did score, 2 empty net goals tonight, but they scored 4 others, right? So there are going to be games where they can score. They have the puck. They get the puck into areas where you can score. They just ain't good at it. Which is why they are a volume team. I know people hate that. Man, Carolina shoots in the blue line a lot. They just scored 2 goals in the blue line tonight. They score a lot of goals in the blue line. Because if you get bodies in between the shooter and the goalie, which is their plan, and they do that much better than I think some of the people on Twitter give them credit, then you got a chance to score when you shoot from the blue line. All right, couple of others. See, we think we could see any looks with Drury up the lineup on left wing. I don't like Drury on the wing. I know he's playing on the wing now. I wouldn't play him up in the lineup on the wing. I leave him on the 4th line on the wing. But I wouldn't hate. I wouldn't hate Drury playing up in the lineup at center, but he's got to start scoring before any of that even happens. Do you think they're going to ride with one goalie or alternate in the playoffs? Kind of depends on how the one goalie who plays game one, and I think that will be Raanta, kind of depends on how he plays and will he stay healthy. What do we know about Antti Raanta? He won't. He's made of paper mache, and he's not going to hold up. So, Raanta will play game one. If he plays well and they win, I think they'll come back with Raanta in game two. But I can see him using both goalies. I said earlier, I can see him using 3 goalies. Right? I can see him using 3. I keep saying it. I think if they go deep in the playoffs, Pyotr Kochetkov's going to have something to say about it. So, all right, final one from Dustin and Cassidy. I don't know which of them is asking the question. When PK played those games Rod gave him, the offense was putting up 0 goals. What's the justification to not call PK up at this point after Freddie has been so leaky for the last month? The justification is Kochetkov was allowing bad goals. That's the justification. You can't allow bad goals. Now, as I said, if Freddie continues to allow bad goals, and I think we're going to start with Raanta, but if Raanta starts allowing bad goals, then I can see it. And I keep saying, I think he is their best goalie. I think he gives them the best chance to go deep into the playoffs because they're going to need goalies to steal a game. He's the only goalie that really stole a game this year. The only one that we went, yep, without him, we had no chance. That game against Toronto. The problem was the next time he played, he allowed 2 bad goals. The 2 goals he allowed to Tampa cannot happen. They can't go in. And he allowed both. They tried. Rod tried. But if we've already seen him get on a run. If he gets on a run, if you get him and you guess right, he could be great. All right. Hope this met your approval. We're brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. If it's for the exterior of your home, you can find it at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina on Hamlin Road in Durham. Sammy Hanna and his crew are amazing. Siding, roofing, windows, entry doors, storm doors, gutter helmets, awnings, railings, carports. That's a new one for me. And I see a lot of carports up here where we live. So, aluminumcompany.com, free no obligation estimate there. As a matter of fact, they are that way. That way, right there. I'm pointing right at the aluminum company. Is that true? Yeah, that's their no, that way. It's a little bit that way. Thank you very much for hanging out. This is it. This is where we're going to be after every Hurricanes game. Usually about 45 minutes after the final horn. We'll get through the aftermath. Give me about 20 minutes to gather some thoughts, and there you go. Until after game one. I'm Adam. We will see you next time. Thank you.